Hey everybody, welcome to Kent with Bent number 151. Yeah, we've done more than a century and a half of videos. That's if you take the century in the very, very broad meaning that it had in Latin and not the more narrow meaning from English that means 100 years. So, you know, yay for Latin. Bent, you learned some Latin in school, right?
I probably learned a little bit
Yeah,
in science classes.
there you go, see? You probably know what, like, Dexter means and, like,
Versus sinister.
yeah, versus sinister, and, like,
Yeah,
I don't know, like superior and inferior, anterior, posterior. Probably learned those, right?
I did.
Those
Yes,
those are all from Latin.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So you're basically Julius Caesar at this point.
I don't think so, but
No.
maybe.
Okay.
Maybe I am.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that we've established that you're basically Julius Caesar. Let's just hope that I'm not Brutus.
Yeah, I really hope not. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, because then I would have to stab you in the back, which I would rather not have to do. Can you promise me not to try to become dictator for life?
I'll do my best.
All right. Well, if you can keep not doing that, then I will be able to keep not stabbing you in the back.
It sounds very reasonable.
All right, deal. Well, guys, now that we've worked out a deal about world domination and how we're not going to do that, we are here, in fact, to take a look at Kent Hovind. We're actually starting a brand new video. This is CSE 104 Class 1, which is allegedly about the Ice Age. I did watch just enough of this to know that it was not just Kent's crazy, like, conspiracy theory stuff, which we don't really cover here. And it does, in fact, have something to do, at least at the beginning, with Ice Ages. So, you know. Let's see. Bent, do you have anything you want to let people know about before we get into it?
Oh, yes, I wanted to say thank you to Joshua Geese, or Guys, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, for buying me several items off of my Amazon wish list.
All right.
I'm very grateful for that. It will do a lot to help feed me.
Yes.
And that's good because I do get hungry.
Yes. Well, that's because, we don't always get you free pizza. And it's either that or wish list. That's pretty much the only way that you get food. So.
Yeah, lately it's basically it.
Matthew Karub says, you wouldn't stab anyone in the back, would you? Generally no, but I could imagine scenarios where I feel like I would. Yeah. Like if someone was gonna go stab someone else and they were facing away from me, and the only thing I could do to stop them in time was stab them in the back, I would do it. At least I would like to think I would. But that's one of the only situations I can come up with where I would actually do that. Unless we're talking metaphorically, in which case, no, I probably wouldn't. I can't imagine too many times I would metaphorically stab someone in the back.
I don't think I would do it literally or metaphorically.
Even if someone was about to stab a loved one of yours?
I mean, I feel like I'll do a leg tackle and kick the knife out of their hand.
It won't work. In this scenario, you're wheelchair bound.
Judo chop them. Oh.
But you have a knife.
Do I have a throwing knife?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
Well, Carnival Frog just gifted 10 Dapper Dinosaur memberships.
Oh, nice.
Thank you very much. Now,
that's awesome.
Here's one thing. Last time we were here, I said that according to YouTube, and I said I thought this was a lie, I said that YouTube said that we needed 7 people to get a new emoji. And then we got 7 people and it said, oh no, actually now you need 22. It most recently told me that I needed 6 people to get an emoji. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go refresh on that and see what it says now, because it's probably lying again. I don't believe YouTube when it says things like this, because I have been burned so many times on that, like, oh, you only need this many people for another emoji. So let's see where we are. Yep, it now says I need 46 more people to get another emoji. But hey, we're going to get into the drinking triggers for this, because this is in fact a drinking stream. The first thing we're going to do, though, is first we're going to take 10 drinks, because one of the drinking triggers is, in fact, that someone gives memberships, and Carnival Frog just gifted 10, so we take 1 drink per membership until we get to about 50 memberships, at which point I'm just going to finish this wonderful Belgian white wheat beer and go get another one. But here's 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right. So, other drink triggers. Well, actually, first we're going to get to the disclaimer. First of all, if you choose to play along, which you absolutely do not need to, if you do, please note that if you don't want to drink alcohol to play along, that's fine. You can drink water, juice, tea, coffee, soda. You can drink, I don't know, non-alcoholic wine or beer. You can take hits from your vape pen. You can high-five someone. You can mark it on a tally mark. I don't care. Whatever you do to mark drink triggers is your business. And as long as it's not, hurting other people, I'm fine with it, right? Do whatever you're going to do to mark that. It does not have to be alcohol. However, if you choose to play along and you want to use an intoxicating substance, please pace yourself, know your limits. We're not taking shots here when I take those 10 drinks, right? These are little gulps of beer, right? So know yourself, know your limits. Stop early if you need to. And do not, after playing this game with an intoxicating substance, go out, operate heavy machinery, drive a car, fly an airplane, or text your ex. These are all bad ideas. Do not do those things. We here at the Dapper Dinosaur channel, including me personally, and Benthoven personally, do not accept any liability or responsibility for you being silly and getting people or yourself hurt or causing damage to property. Don't do it. So, that being said, we got one from Jillian. We got a super chat from Jillian Flappy Ribs. For $2 says an early Jillian's birthday present with a Mothra and a cake. Thank you very much, Jillian. Happy birthday. And we'll take a drink for that Mothra.
Happy birthday.
Because one of the other ways that y'all can get us to drink is by super chatting or membership milestone chatting any of the 3 kaiju emojis, which include Mothra, Godzilla, and King Ghidorah. That is only available to channel members. Now, Kent is going to be the cause for most of our drink triggers, most likely. First of all, we will take a drink anytime Kent Hovind says something that is so stupid we just kind of have to cool our brains down, because, brain coolant. Lizzie B, who's been a member for 4 months and is at the tetrapod level, says, "It's taken me 4 months and I just passed episode 100. Well, congratulations. There are a lot of these. It is always fun when someone starts from the very beginning with Kent with Bent, and it's like, oh boy, do you have a journey in front of you. Wow. Just hours and hours and hours of content right there.
So many.
Yeah. And most of them are about 2 hours. So there's about 300 hours worth of Kent with Bent out there right now already.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Even if you watch it on times 2, it's still 150 because of math. That's how numbers work. Anyway, we'll all take a drink if Kent Hovind tells a joke that doesn't land or tells a story that didn't happen. Now, that last part is going to be a little bit of a judgment call on our part, because we can't verify most of the time whether his anecdotes happen, but generally I give him the benefit of the doubt until it seems too ridiculous. And once it sounds like something that should have been on r/that happened, we take a drink. Just a Peach03, who has been a member for 32 months and is at the tetrapod level, says, Mothra, 1 billion points, can't get bent, and we will take a drink. Thank you very much. Okay. Now, we will also take a drink if Kent Hovind actually manages to get something accurate. If he gets something right, and it's not just him quoting some other source, we'll take a drink for that. We'll also take a drink if Kent Hovind mixes up what we can know about the single individual Lucy versus what we can know about her entire taxon based on all of the available evidence, right? So if he says, well, we can't tell if Australopithecus afarensis could walk upright because we don't have Lucy's feet. Well, guess what? We have Takika-child's feet, and they're perfectly morphologically consistent with upright locomotion. So that is what we call an ad hominid. We can only get one of those drink triggers per night. We usually don't get them at all, but when we do, it's always fun. There's also Trojan Source. Trojan Source is when Kent Hovind cites, or well, whoever, but in this case, Kent Hovind, cites a source, and then we check the source. And not only does the source fail to support the contention in question, but it actively contradicts it. We call that a Trojan Source. The king of those is Randy Galuza, not Kent Hovind, but, we got Kent's today. In fact, I don't think I have one of these shows with Randy Galuza. Maybe I should. If anyone has a name that rhymes with Randy let me know. We gotta find somebody named Andy
Or
to do.
Galooza.
Or Galooza, but that's less likely. I gotta find a science communicator guy whose name is Andy, so I can do Randy with Andy. That's the real
That would be
ticket.
good.
Yeah, that would be.
I'd watch that show.
All right. Well, assuming Andy's any good. Andy, first get good, then contact me. I know you're out there. Anyway, we will also take a drink if either Bent or I can successfully predict what Kent is going to say where it's not terribly clear. It especially counts if, like, we both have competing predictions where we could both be wrong, but one of us could also be right. If we get one of those right, we'll take a drink for it. We'll also take a drink if Kent Hovind mentions that German political party that was super popular in like the first half of the 20th century. You know, the ones with the little tiny mustaches and the all the eagle banners. Those guys. If he mentions them, we'll take a drink. Now, notice this is not the Godwin's Law drink, because to violate Godwin's Law, or to be an example of Godwin's Law, I should say, what you have to do is accuse your opponents of being members of that party, or compare them to members of that party. All he has to do is bring them up at all, because he loves to bring them up. We will also take a drink if anyone can super chat or membership milestone chat anything to the effect that Answers in Genesis are a bag of dicks. And I think that I am up on drink triggers. What have I missed, Bent?
If Godzilla comes by audibly.
Yes, that is true. If Godzilla or Mothra come by audibly, we will take a drink. So
is a professional.
Yes, Dapper's a professional. If I screw up the production of the show, so for instance, if I leave either myself or Bent on mute when I shouldn't have, or if I change scenes to the wrong seed, or if I forget to turn off the intro video when we come back from break, something like that, we'll take a drink for Dapper's a professional. Now, if something beyond my control happens, like YouTube just cuts out, or my internet connection cuts out, or OBS crashes or something like that, that is not Dapper's a professional, because that isn't my doing. That is just the dangers of live content. So, I think that then is it, unless I've got any more that I've missed.
I think that's all.
Awesome. Well then, in that case, I will finish the poll, because it is about who's ready for Kent Hovind, read those out, and then we will start in to Kent. Let's see, are you ready for Kent? Turtle, 53%. Yes, 28%. No, 18%. Well, that, what is it? 32% of you who aren't ready for Kent Hovind, I got bad news for you, because here he is.
We're talking about, what about the Ice Age? The textbooks in school will tell the kids and show pictures how that the ice came down as far as, Kansas City, Missouri, down in...
It came down a lot farther than that, but okay.
To, mid to southern Illinois. Was there an Ice Age? I don't think there's much question that, yes, there was an Ice Age. If you look at this map, they show the Wisconsin glaciation, the Illinoisan glaciation, Kansas and Nebraska. They'll say there were 4 different Ice Ages. People have argued about this for years, how many Ice Ages there were.
So this is a bit a weird thing with the terminology, right? Technically, in terms of paleoclimatology and geology and whatnot, an ice age is any time Earth goes through a year and there is ice on the surface at relatively low elevations that does not melt throughout that year. Right? So if you have ice caps at all that are year-round ice caps, that's an ice age. Which means that technically we're in an ice age right now. So how many ice ages has Earth had? It's actually a little bit less clear. We know of at least 2. We're currently in one. What people usually mean by this, though, is how many times have we had glacial periods. A glacial period is part of an ice age when there is extensive glaciation. So what that means is that we can ask 2 different questions. How many times has there been an ice age on Earth versus how many glacial periods were there in the most recent ice age? Now, in the most recent ice age, the number is quite a few. I don't actually know. I've never bothered to put that, information into my brain and hold on to it. But we know it was several, and we know this because we can actually trace the action of different ice sheets, right? So even here, you can see that there are different colored sections, and that is because different glacial periods get to different extents, and they leave what are called terminal moraines when they get to their maximum extent. What a terminal moraine is basically, as a glacier flows, it picks up lots of debris, rocks, sediment, stuff like that. But when it gets to its southern extent generally, because we just have more land in the north, so most glaciers are flowing, roughly north to south. When it gets to its farthest extent, and then it gets to the point where it's melting or breaking away or whatever, it drops all that stuff. And so you get sort of like a hill of all this glacial debris. And those are called glacial moraines. And if you have more than one of them, then you know that glaciers got to that extent, retreated, got to a different extent, and retreated. And we can see several of these in geology. So that's how we know. So yes, there has been more than one glacial maximum. Josh McGee's for $5 says, I've seen 2 suggestions for Dr. Tapioca Weasel Randy Galooza. Wait, does Dr. Tapioca Weasel have a name that's similar enough to Randy Galooza? That would be interesting.
I'm not sure what his name is.
I do know part of his name, but I don't want to. I want to dox Dr. Tapioca.
I know his
Weasel.
last name, but I don't know his first name.
Yeah, which is usually the opposite for me and people online.
Because as ice goes scooting across the countryside, it scours it. It can scour it
I know he's Vandy, but that's taken from his last name, not his first name.
down to bare rock. Pushes all the soil out of the way. It can. It doesn't always do that.
It pretty much always pushes soil out of the way, because soil isn't the kind of thing that's firmly attached to the ground. And so when hundreds of feet worth of, or dozens of or meters worth of ice starts pushing against the ground, yeah, the soil's going to come with it. But whatever, Kent, who cares?
And when the ice melts back, there's nothing left but solid rock basin where it was. As it pushes along, the ice, like a big bulldozer, will push up a pile of rocks in front of it. Remember when we were in...
Hey, he's right about this. We'll take a drink. Hey, good job, Kent.
Aunt Lynn's and Mount St. Helens and Mount Rainier, there are what they call moraines all around that.
Hey, I just said that.
The rocks will pile up in front of it, and then when the ice melts back, it leaves this huge pile of rocks. Sometimes they're hundreds of feet high, these piles of rocks, and sometimes they're miles.
Kent is doing a surprisingly good job of describing how glaciers work. I am kind of surprised. We might have to take another Kent is getting stuff right drink.
Miles long. All across Illinois and Iowa, you can see the lines on this map here. These are actually moraines. At the end, if it's pushing it along in front of it, and then the ice melts back and it disappears, the pile of rocks in front is called a terminal moraine. Terminal, where it stopped, okay? Usually,
he's getting all this right. I'm going to take another drink.
Goes in, and pretty soon you can't see the rocks anymore. It's all, becomes just a big mound. And people build houses on it, and houses, cities built on top of moraines. But if you dig down in 10, 15 feet, you'll start hitting rocks. And sometimes huge rocks. I mean, half as big as this house. These monstrous rocks are all pushed in front of this ice. Very frequently, these rocks will have scratches on them, where they've been dragged across another rock.
So here's an interesting thing. One of the things that we see at the so-called Great Unconformity, right, which is a unconformity that's almost worldwide, is that we actually see these scrape marks that Kent is talking about as a result of glaciers, which is one of the reasons why we think that a big reason why we have this unconformity is a much earlier ice age that wasn't, I don't remember exactly, but something like 2.5 billion years ago or something, right? Like a long time ago. And that's the idea behind snowball or slush ball Earth. And so that is one of the reasons that we have a good idea that the Earth has had a major glacial event that was essentially global way back in the past. The Great Unconformity can be found very easy to see near the bottom of the Grand Canyon. And you don't even have to go to the bottom of the Grand Canyon to see it. If you just bring some binoculars to the Grand Canyon, you can stay up top at the rim and look down. Which I would recommend for most people who are not very experienced hikers, because pretty much every year, some people go down the Grand Canyon and do not come back up. At least not alive. Because they were not prepared for that ridiculously arduous journey. And the thing is, it's tricky, because as you're going down, it seems very easy. It's very, very easy for you to accidentally go too far down and not realize how much more energy it's going to take to come back up. So, don't go to the bottom of the Grand Canyon unless you know what you're doing and you have a plan.
Sometimes the ice will push a big boulder for miles and leave behind a scratch, 50 feet wide and 20 feet deep, a scratch in solid rock. if you ever get up near Detroit, there's an island just off into the Lake Erie called Kelly's Island that is loaded with these scratches. You got to take a little boat to get out there. Loaded with these scratches from obvious signs of what's called glaciation. Moving ice leaves behind distinctive characteristics.
Okay, so this is interesting to me, right? Because Kent is saying that we know what glaciers do in the present because we can see what they do. And we can use that to infer glaciers in the past with geological evidence. You know why that's interesting to me that Kent is making this argument about the present being the key to the past when it comes to glaciers?
Why is that?
Because he doesn't do it with anything else. Because we know what floods do too, and what they do is not what we see in the geological record. But he's like, well, how do you know? Where could it have come from if not from a great flood? You don't know what actually happened in the past. That's just uniformitarian atheist thinking. And yet here he is, because he knows that for most people, the evidence of the ice age, of at least a glacial period in an ice age, is just far too obvious. And so he's perfectly willing to accept that, in this case, the present is the key to the past. But in other cases where he has a harder time wedding that to his attempts at biblical literalism, is what I'll call them, yeah, then suddenly, no, that doesn't work. So, despite the fact that Kent is getting this right, he's only able to get it right by invalidating his general points about science. Which is, a little odd to me. I would think that he might want to have a more consistent view of how science works. But then again, Kent isn't exactly the most clever of individuals. Wayne Rossi for $1.99 says, AIG is a moraine of man bits. That conjures uncomfortable images, but I'll take a drink for it anyway. Alright, thank you very much. And we will add that increase to our total. And then Rael Gatubello for $2 says, I bet he ignores how fast the glaciers are melting. I'll say this, I don't think he's going to talk about it, but I'm also not sure that it will become relevant, right? Because technically speaking, the current retreat rate of glaciers doesn't really connect causally to the evidence for relatively recent glaciation. So, those things were I'm sure that Kent is... I know for a fact Kent is a climate change denialist. But I don't think it would be relevant to bring up in this topic anyway. So I think that's really the bigger reason why he's just not going to talk about current glacial retreat.
I don't think there are very many people on the creation or evolution side that would argue this point. Yeah,
he's generally right. AIG, ICR, they all think there was a fairly recent glacial period.
Yes, there was an ice age. There was ice all the way down to Kansas City, Missouri. The question is, when did it happen? Now, as the ice pushes, it leaves in front of it a terminal moraine. Mm-hmm. On the sides of it, they're called lateral moraines. Piles of rocks on the side. Remember when we went out there to Washington, we saw, as the ice is bulldozing its way down, real slowly down the valley, rocks kind of automatically go to the middle. If you ever look at a glacier, you'll see a streak of rocks right down the middle of it. It's just by the way it moves. The ice in the center is moving a little faster than the ice at the sides because it has friction against the sides and not as much friction in the middle. Ice flows sort of like plastic, real slowly flowing.
Okay, Kent, but what's the point here? Everyone is okay with evidence of how glaciers work now being used to infer the presence of glaciers in the past, which is weird because normally you're not okay with that kind of thing. But now what? Because clearly you think that the glacial period was sometime in the last 6,000 years, whereas science has dated it to sometime around closer to 10 or 12,000 years ago. So how are you making up the difference? Where is that coming from? That's the question now. Ray Gatubella for $2 says, AIG is a bag containing Nixon, Clark, and Van Dyke. Remember, pictures of Dick Van Dyke are some of the only kinds of acceptable unsolicited dick pics. I am always happy to receive pictures of Dick Van Dyke, whether or not they're solicited. So, and I've also sent a few pictures of Dick Van Dyke, unsolicited. So, I know.
it can move real fast. There have been times where glaciers have been seen to move 100 yards in a few days. Normally, it's real slow. When we climbed on Mount Rainier, there were 13 glaciers on that mountain. As the ice slides down, it's going real slow. As it goes over hills and down into valleys, cracks open up and then close up. If you ever get a chance to see a time-lapse photography
okay, we're going to start speeding this up because I have no idea what the point of this is.
Cracks open up and then they close up, and it's just amazing to watch over, or they can take 6 months and compress it into 5 minutes for you. Those cracks are 200 feet deep, this wide, maybe this wide, 200 feet deep. Sometimes you get a crack, say this wide, 150 or 200 feet deep. And it snows real heavy, and it's enough snow that you can't see the crack. 6 inches of snow. You're walking along, shoot, disappear.
Yes, this is one of the reasons why it is dangerous to hike on glaciers, and you shouldn't do it without extensive training and safety gear and someone to back you up. So, good job, Kent, I guess, warning people about the dangers of glaciers.
Down into what they call a crevasse. As we were climbing Mount Rainier, the guys take us up, and you take these ropes to get up to the top of Mount Rainier. These guys are checking carefully for these crevasses, and everybody's all roped together, and you're spread out, 20 or 30 feet between each person. In case somebody falls into a crevasse, the rest of you, dig in, and his rope goes tight, and then you can pull him back up. But it's extremely dangerous with these cracks in the glacier. Who cares? Anyway, yes, there's no question the Earth had glaciation effects. As the ice melts back, then, it leaves behind very distinctive features. For one thing, a mile of ice is pretty heavy. It presses down on the ground, and once it's gone, the ground actually lifts back up.
Yeah, that's actually one of the reasons why a lot of places in the United States that are pretty far from any actual fault still get earthquakes, right? So, like, I used to live in Massachusetts. I was there for several earthquakes. Pennsylvania gets earthquakes. So that is primarily because of the ground rebounding slowly after the glacial retreat. Carrie Bronson for $5 says, why does he have to upsell everything he talks about? I think it's part of just, like, his general showmanship. Because I will say this about Kent, right? He is good at holding the attention of an audience that is interested in what he has to say in the first place. If he can get a friendly and interested audience, he is good at keeping them there. And part of that is the kind of, like, the constant upsell. I think that's just part of his, like, I don't want to say sales tactic, because technically it's not a sales pitch, but it's kind of the same idea, I think. That's my hypothesis. I don't know. I'm not an expert. So.
Sometimes many feet. It is estimated that if all the ice at the South Pole were to disappear, Antarctica would lift up probably 2,000 feet.
Is it estimated by, like, people who actually run estimates, Kemp? Because you just said, so that feels like it's just a number that you made up. I mean, yeah, obviously Antarctica would rise in elevation if all the ice were gone, but, like, I feel like you just made that number up, Kent. Here we go. We're gonna poll the audience, and find out what you all think.
It seems like a lot.
Did Kent? Why isn't it capitalized? Come on, there we go. Kent, make that number up. Yes, no, and of course. Turtle. Alex Marco says, what else would you call it if not a sales pitch? Preaching. I would call it preaching. Vadim Marchenko says, it might also be Kent's egotism showing in his mannerisms and speech. Yeah, I don't think those things are necessarily incommensurate or incompatible. I think it could be both of those things at the same time. Well, yes is running away with it, and no one says no, but a fair few people are saying turtle. By the way, I am still planning, if we do get another emoji, which who knows how far away we are, because YouTube will say 6, and then someone will give me 10 memberships, and then it'll suddenly say, like, 43, so, like, who knows. If we do get one, it will, in fact, be Darwin with the, the cool, like, take that meme glasses. So, that is the plan for the next emoji. I believe Vishanti has actually already made the emoji, so it is ready to go. We just have to get there. So, yeah. Here we go.
Just the weight will be gone. I mean, if we parked a freight train in our yard, it would dent the ground down a little ways. Or what if we parked a mile of ice? You know, how what a gallon of water weighs? Imagine a mile of it.
The ice would weigh less than the same volume of water, Kent. Water expands when it freezes, but, I mean, yeah, it would still be really heavy, so whatever.
As the ground lifts up, it's called isostatic rebound.
Wow, he's getting that right, too.
As the pressure is gone.
Take a drink. Why is Kent smart about this one thing?
Especially across places like Wisconsin and Minnesota, it left behind thousands and thousands of lakes. Have you spoken in Minnesota?
Let's see. Casual Sleeping Dragon says, what about a Baja Blast emoji? Well, that would have to be after the Darwin emoji, because that one was already promised. And Triceratops is not a Sauroptian dinosaur. Says, like this vid, support Dapper emojis. Technically, liking will help in the long run, but in the short run, the only way to get that emoji is for people to just either give gifted memberships or to join themselves.
I've preached a dozen times in Minnesota. Yeah. They call it the land of 10,000 lakes and 20 billion mosquitoes.
Joshua Geese for $5 says, YouTube, moving goalposts since Google acquisition. Not wrong. And then Ray Algatubello for $5 says, sadly, unlike Kent, Eric has good comedic timing. In a better world, he'd have been a blue-collar comedy kind of thing. Or comedy group kind of thing. Yeah, that would be a better world, where Eric was just doing, like, blue-collar comedy. Yeah. What a wonderful timeline that would be. All right, I'm going to close this poll. We've had 43 votes. So let's see how it did. I think one person got a vote in before. Yeah, one person got a vote in. Did Kent make that number up? Yes, 63%. Turtle, 36%. No, 0%. Okay, so yeah. No one thinks he didn't make that number up. Eric does have a little bit of Captain America vibe, although he's a little bit too skinny to really be Captain America. He's like Captain America pre-Super Soldier Serum.
Because most of these lakes are pretty shallow. It's places where the ice melted back, the ground would lift up unevenly, and sometimes just places are just trapped. Or if the ground isn't quite even and it rains, the water's got nowhere to go, it's going to fill in a puddle. So more like giant mud puddles, because it's pretty flat up there. So yes, there was an ice age. The question is, when was it? And how many were there?
Yeah, Kent, that's been the question for the past 5 minutes. Could you please talk about that?
Creationists generally fall into two camps on this ice age question. I believe the evidence indicates, and we'll cover this, my theory on this in this class, that the ice age caused the flood.
And that would mean that everything that the flood deposited, like all those dinosaur bones you believe were deposited by the flood, would have to be over all the evidence of this glaciation. But that's not how it is. This glacial evidence is some of the highest stuff in the geologic column. Do you think Kent knows how cause and effect works?
I don't think he can relate the geologic column to the topic at hand.
That's true.
In his head.
All right, Kent, in the off chance that you see this, generally speaking, things that cause other things happen to have to happen before the other thing that they caused. That's generally how cause and effect work. I'm taking a drink for how stupid that was. Imagine thinking these things that are still surface features of the Earth to this day were the cause of the lower layers of strata below them. I don't even know how that could possibly work. Oh my goodness, Kent.
And then probably lasted for 200 years after the flood. But
so the flood is bookended by Ice Age. So was the flood during a glacial period? Were there glaciers under the floodwaters? Is that what's happening?
I think that's what he's describing.
Huh. Prixie Purple for $2 says, I like the sound of Randy with Vandy. Oh, that could work. Yeah, Randy with Vandy.
I do like that. That would work well.
Yeah. The other thing is I have to double check to see if Randy Galuza has enough content that's actually worth responding to. Because that is another key aspect of this mixture. Because there's a lot of creationists out there who have names that could work for a pun-based show name. But their problem is that they have absolutely nothing worthwhile to say that could sustain something like this, 150 episodes. Not that Kent is worthwhile, but like there's a certain mix of like level of craziness to like level of it can be entertaining. And one of the problems with Randy is I've watched a lot of his stuff recently, hoping to get something to respond to. A lot of it is just nothing. It's like literally like he's not even making a point. He's just rambling for like an hour. I watched something that he recently came out with, I think like this past week on the ICR channel. And it was part of his whole, like, oh, we're going to replace evolution with our own engineering-based theory of biological diversity. And I got through about 20 minutes, and he just said nothing in the entire 20 minutes. Literally nothing. There wasn't actually anything to hang my hat on. I was like, I don't even know how to refute this, because there's no point being made. It's just him complaining.
That's what started the flood. The other group says, oh no, the flood started the Ice Age. And I always ask them, well then what started the flood?
I mean, it was a miracle, Kent. I don't think they're going to give you an answer beyond that.
Well, we don't know. Okay. I don't either, but I think the theory that we're about to share with you, called the Hovind theory, makes as much sense as any I've heard, and it's a combination of many other people's theories. It's not nothing original with me.
Yeah, we'll take a drink for that. I can tell you want to, Ben.
It's so dumb.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I don't think there's any argument, yes, there was an Ice Age. The question is, when was it?
Again, I just want to keep pointing out. Kent thinks there was an Ice Age because of the physical, geological evidence of ice flows on Earth. But that is directly contrary to his general logic about geology, which is to basically say you cannot infer past events from present processes. So Kent is being a gigantic hypocrite here.
If you took enough water out of the oceans to freeze and cover the North Pole clear down to Kansas City, with a mile-thick layer of ice, that would lower the oceans by hundreds of feet.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Doggerland. Oh, yeah, well, he's right about that, so take a drink, too.
Common sense. You take all that water out, freeze it, stick it on the poles. The oceans are much lower, which makes the continents much bigger.
Do we know much about Canada, and does it show the same effect?
Canada shows effects of Ice Age almost everywhere.
Yep, that's one of the reasons why topsoil layers in Canada tend to be pretty thin. You don't have to dig very far in most of Canada before you get to what's called the Canadian Shield, which is a granite bedrock, because pretty much everything else was ripped up by the glaciers. So, he's right about this too, I guess. We'll take a drink for that. This is a weird episode, guys. Very weird.
Matter of fact, you notice around Denver, Colorado, you can see there's a blue spot on this map. If it's on the previous map, it doesn't show. It's interesting, when they dug into some of the mountains in Denver for...
Just a reminder, this was a question about Canada. And let me double check. Bent, I know that you're an expert at geography. So is Denver in Canada?
No, it is not.
Oh, so is it in Mexico?
Nope. It's
Russia?
in Colorado, in
Colorado?
the United States.
Oh, weird. Okay.
Yeah.
Or I think it was for NORAD. I don't remember the story now. Maybe it was just a gold mine. The ground is still frozen when you go way down inside.
I am skeptical that there is permafrost in Colorado. Very, very skeptical.
Really strange. Something happened. Mom and I were in Alaska when I was preaching up there about a year.
He just called his wife Joe Mom and I. I think he forgot that he's not just talking to Eric. Hey, kid, how's that relationship going? Oh, he divorced you right after you got out of jail and started making you pay rent to live in what used to be your own house, then kicked you out? Oh, man. Maybe you hadn't been such a piece of shit your whole life.
And a half ago, and we went on a little cruise boat for a couple hours out to see the Portage Glacier, where the ice, when it reaches the edge, it breaks off, Sometimes big chunks break off. Sometimes little chunks break off.
Yes, it's called calving. It's pretty cool. And it's happening faster and faster, which is less cool.
One danger is when the ice breaks off, everybody's standing there watching, all of a sudden, boom, drops down into the water. Well, what happens to the water? Whew, big wave. Okay, swamps the boat and everything else can happen.
Fearmonger says, my Coloradan mother can confirm that while the weather is variable, there definitely isn't any permafrost. Good to know.
Plus, sometimes the boat will go out there and hit these ice, just like the Titanic. I mean, that's what sunk it, These are smaller icebergs generally, but sometimes huge ones break off. Icebergs, big ones, have been...
Kent, nothing about icebergs is going to tell us how long ago there was an ice age. What are you doing? Did you forget what the topic was, and then you just started talking about ice in general? What is...
Of course he did.
Yeah, that's basically what happened. It's true.
Seen floating around for 5 years before they melt. There has been serious talk of getting icebergs and dragging them down with boats to water the Sahara Desert or to water some of the Arab countries. You know, they got
Serious talk by whom? Crazy people like Kent? Because that seems like an amazingly impractical thing to do.
nothing to do with their money. You know, they make all the money from that oil. So let's get a bunch of boats and drag an iceberg down here.
Look, if like Saudi Arabia or the UAE wants to spend a bunch of oil money to drag an iceberg down to the Middle East, I'm not going to stop them. Good luck to them, in fact. Go for it. It's probably less stupid than Neom the Line. You ever heard about this, Ben?
No, I have not.
It's a Saudi oil billionaire, royal prince or whatever, who wants to build a linear city that's like 60 miles long in the middle of the desert for some reason. Because why bother having 3 dimensions to spread a city into when you could just restrict it to 2? That's much better, right?
How much would you have to drive to get anywhere?
Oh, don't worry, there will be trains on linear tracks. So that, you know, there's no like parallel lines or anything. There's just 2 directional in-series tracks.
This is a real life plan. It's not like
Well,
a
it's
Factorio set up by someone who doesn't know how to play the game.
interestingly, I actually have seen a working the line Factorio set up in the Dune Deserts, which was actually super freaking cool.
Okay.
But no, this is supposed to be a real life city. It has basically made no progress at all. And don't worry, because there's also supposed to be flying cars in there. At least that's what's in the CGI promotional art. So I'm sure that'll make it much easier to get around. Yeah. And again, this is going to be built in the middle of Saudi Arabia, which means I'm sure that lots of people are going to be flocking to live in the country that still crucifies people and let little girls burn to death in a school fire because they didn't have hats on. So they wouldn't let them out of the building with their hair uncovered. So they burned to death instead.
That's awful.
Yeah. Does that just make you want to run to live in Saudi Arabia?
No.
No? I
Not
can't
even-
imagine why not. To be fair, they only crucify people after they execute them in the first place. Because nothing says a beacon of civilization like leaving up the corpses of your execution victims as a warning to others. Yeah. You might not be able to tell. Not a huge fan of the country of Saudi Arabia.
I did know that.
Yeah. Well, those are some specific reasons why.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ray Elgatubello for $2 says, a linear city sounds like Canada in South Park. I mean, I think you mean in real life, because as we know, the Trans-Canada Highway is the only road in Canada.
Let it melt. It would be fresh water. Anyway, Mom and I are on this little cruise boat out going seeing the Portage Glacier, and I'm up on the deck talking to this guy standing there. We're watching the icebergs. The process when they break off, it's called calving, like a cow has a calf.
He's right about that too. I already mentioned that. Kent, what are you doing today, buddy? Kent is exceeding expectations. Like normally he gets like a 20% right kind of thing at best. Today I think he's over 50%. I think most of the things he said have been right.
He's never been right this many times before.
No, I don't think so.
I'm pretty confident about that.
Yeah, this is kind of shocking, honestly.
Icebergs have a calf. Glaciers have a calf called an iceberg. So we're watching these chunks break off, and it's such an awesome sound, and you got to see it to understand it. And I asked the guy, so what do you do for a living? He said, well, I work in the oil field up in Barrow, Alaska.
Hey, I had an uncle who worked there.
Now, Barrow, Alaska
I'm pretty sure it's Barrow, but whatever. I'll let it go.
is way at the top of Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
There is.
It's also the setting for 30 Days of Night, if you're a big fan of that movie. Or if you aren't and haven't seen it, but you do like horror movies, it's a good one. Vampires go to Barrow at the start of their month-long nighttime period in the depths of winter. So, yeah, right around that winter solstice, there's 15 days to either side of the winter solstice where the sun just doesn't come up in Barrow. And vampires show up, because when's a better time for a vampire attack than when they have an entire month where they don't have to worry about the sun?
That's a good point.
Yep. So yeah, if you're looking for a nice horror movie, It is a bit gory, so if you're squeamish, maybe not. But if you can deal with that, then yeah, check out 30 Days of Night. I had fun with it. And yeah, it takes place in Barrow.
Nothing there. Not a tree, hardly a blade of grass.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
basically
just
true.
Nothing.
There's polar bears, where they hunt, and they'll hunt you. You don't actually have to worry about vampires in Barrow. You do have to worry about the polar bears. They will hunt you. They will hide out in parking lots.
It's way inside the Arctic Circle, so they will get, several months of pure darkness.
By several, he means about one, but whatever. It's compared to the mistakes that Kent usually makes, that's nothing. Actually, so Ray Algatabella for $2 says, actually, it's Utpiavik? I don't know. I don't especially know what that G with the dot over it is supposed to be. But hey, I'm going to assume that that is the native pronunciation for that location. And I don't know how to pronounce it, though. I'm not even sure what language it would be in. Like, is that Inupiaq or something? Let me know. And then, Vandalia, 1998, who has been a member for 49 months and is at the amniote level, says, Kent's been right a lot today. Is today opposite day and no one told us? No, today is not opposite day. But the clever thing there is, if it is opposite day, then I'm required to tell you that it's not opposite day. So that doesn't actually help you any.
It's still suspicious.
In fact, anytime someone says it is opposite day, they have to be lying. Because if it is opposite day, then they have to tell you it's not opposite day. And if it's not opposite day and they tell you that it is, well, then they're just lying. So no one is allowed to tell you it's opposite day and not be a liar. One of the weird conundrums.
What if they say it might be opposite day today?
Then that is always true.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, someone could tell you when it's going to be opposite day. They could say tomorrow is opposite day, and if it is, then they're not necessarily lying. It is Inupiaq. Okay, cool. I guessed correctly.
And during the summertime, several months of 24-hour sunlight. Okay. I said, you work in the oil well, huh? I said, do you ever find anything unusual when you drill? He said, man, we find the strangest things. He said, just 2 weeks ago, the guys were drilling down for an oil well. They drilled through 1,000 feet of solid frozen ground called permafrost, permanently frozen.
I'm getting a little bit weirded out by how often I say something, only for them Kent to say the exact same thing and be right about it. Honestly, it's kind of uncomfortable. I don't like it. It's not how the show normally goes.
No, it's not.
The top few inches thaws out in the summer, but then everything underneath is frozen, permafrost. He said, here we are drilling down 1,000 feet, and they started bringing up pieces of wood.
Okay.
And so they started saving the pieces of wood as they brought them out, because they always check and see what they're drilling through. They save the pieces and try to reassemble the core on shore, on land, so that they can...
Okay, Barrow is on land. So I'm not sure if they're drilling offshore in this scenario, but whatever, I guess it doesn't matter.
Tell what formation, are they going through sandstone or limestone or shale, or what are they drilling through? He said, we began putting this together. We drilled straight through a tree that was standing up, and it was 300 feet tall.
Okay, so first, some guy once told me on a glacier tour isn't exactly a wonderful citation. Second, I don't know what this is supposed to tell me about anything. Like, what information do we get out of this? There was a vertical fossil somewhere in a drill site in Alaska. Okay. Like, and? What's your point? How does this help us determine anything about an ice age? Like, I really want to think about it. Bent, did you know there have been glacial periods?
Yes.
Okay. But did you know that sometimes trees are preserved in a more or less upright position?
Yes, I did.
Well, now, I guess that means that evolution is dumb, doesn't it?
I fail to follow.
Checkmate, atheist.
I'm not even an atheist.
Well, according to Kent, you probably are because you want to
That's true.
sin. See,
Kent would think I'm an atheist.
See, you only believe in evolution because you think it means that you don't have to answer to God when you die, and therefore you can go sleep around.
It's so absurd that he actually believes that.
He really does, and it's weird. And I always find it amusing when he does a whack an atheist on someone who's not an atheist in the first place. Even Christians, he's done several whack an atheists on Clint from Clint's Reptiles, who's Mormon, which Kent probably wouldn't count as Christian, but it's certainly not an atheist. Mormons aren't atheists.
Kent knows better, too.
Yeah, he does. Rail got to Bella for $2 says, you know what they find under permafrost? Tiktaalik. I mean, under the permafrost, yeah. But yeah, I mean, it was true. Tiktaalik was found deep below where permafrost would be.
Well, did you ever get up and see the redwoods or sequoias when you were out in California? Okay. The tallest tree in the world today that's known is the General Sherman tree in north of San Francisco in the redwood forest.
I think that has changed since then. It is currently Hyperion, and it's possible that Hyperion just hadn't been discovered when this was being talked about. But it is currently Hyperion. The exact location of Hyperion is actually a guarded secret so that people don't come and damage it, because that is a distinct possibility. So you're not actually allowed to know where Hyperion is. It's actually not the only such tree. Methuselah, which is the oldest bristlecone pine known, also has a secret location. And the small little gorge in a national park in Australia where the Wollemi pine, it's the only place where the Wollemi pine still grows naturally. That is also a non-disclosed location. You're not supposed to know where it is unless you're like working for the rangers out there. So yeah, there are a few classified tree locations out there in the world. Those are 3 that I happen to know about. So yeah. Did Kent whack Dr. Joel Duff, asks Vadim Redchenko? I don't know. That would be it. It would certainly be interesting, because Joel Duff is a fairly theologically conservative Protestant, which basically puts him theologically in a very similar camp to Kent Hovind. So, and I happen to know that Joel Duff, not a fan of apocotastasis. So there you go. Alex Marcos says, don't you love that we can't have nice things because people suck? Yeah, it is. So it's true, but also part of the thing is, even if you don't do anything that is, sucky at the location of Hyperion or Methuselah or the Wollemi Pines, just your presence can cause a disruption, right? Like, you're going to trample things. You might accidentally drop trash, even though you're not intending to. And so the goal is just keep traffic to a minimum overall. Even if the people who are going to go are going to be respectful, you still need to keep traffic to a minimum, so they just don't let people know where they are. Although my understanding is it's not actually very hard to figure out where Hyperion is, because it's the tallest tree in the world. So like, you can kind of look for it. It's not exactly inconspicuous. But that being said, don't go looking for it. Just enjoy that it exists. There are pictures you can find online. Don't go visit Hyperion. For one thing, it's, as far as I know, like, you can get in trouble for it. And for another thing, like, just keep it preserved. Just don't go there. Your presence might cause some small amount of damage, and just don't do that.
I think it's 320 feet. That's the world's tallest tree, somewhere close to that. You get up to Barrow, Alaska, there are no trees. Nothing. I mean, it's just like a desert almost, okay? Here they are, 1,000...
Actually, I think it technically is a desert. I'm not positive, but I think it actually is, because my understanding is that they get very little precipitation up there, which would make it a desert. So, just remember, what makes a desert is how much precipitation it receives annually, and it has nothing to do with its temperature or its location, right? So, like, I live in a hot desert, but Antarctica is the world's biggest and driest desert.
Feet underground and drilled straight through a 300-foot tall tree standing up.
Okay.
Now, just simple statistics would tell you they probably didn't hit the biggest one.
Maybe, but like, I don't know if you guys know this, but redwood trees were actually pretty ubiquitous in North America during the Cretaceous. So if they just drilled into a Cretaceous layer, that could explain most of this. And you usually had to drill farther down than the Cretaceous to get to oil wells. So like, what I'm hearing is, if this happened, which again, I'm not very confident that it did, because Kent's source is just some guy he met on a boat trip. But if it did happen, this just sounds like they drilled through some, like, petrified wood from the Cretaceous. Which, like, okay. Sure.
I mean, they might have, but the chances are pretty slim. several times I've talked to people who work in the oil well up there. One guy gave me this years ago. Very few people I've let see this, and even fewer people touch it. This is some of the frozen wood that was brought up from 1,000 feet below the ground in Barrow, Alaska. It is extremely fragile. Every time you touch it, you lose pieces of it. But I'm going to let you guys hold a piece of freeze-dried wood. Eric, if you'll get this and pass it around, it'll crumble like powder if you just bump it.
Okay, so freeze drying doesn't necessarily make things crumble like powder if they're already pretty tough, which wood is. Which makes me very skeptical that this is wood. Further, what evidence does he have that it's freeze-dried? Because freeze-drying is a particular process, right? That requires extremely rapid cooling that we don't normally see in nature. Like, there's a reason it's something that you have to do in, like, a special setup. You can't just freeze-dry things. So, like, what... It does not obviously look like wood, but then again, this is a really low-quality video. I think that I had to search through 4 different copies of this to find one that was as high-res as 360. Yeah. I searched through, I think, 3 of these were 240, and then I finally found one that was 360. So, like, granted, from just a visual thing, it's going to be hard to say. But, like, really, what reason do I have to think that this is freeze-dried wood? Does Kent have any, like, documentation of its provenance? Does he know who discovered it? Has he sent it for any kind of analysis? I'm even more skeptical that it's freeze-dried, because you should be able to tell if it's freeze-dried, right? But, like, is it? How do you know? How do you even know it's made of wood, Kent? Did you look at it under a microscope to determine that it has plant cells? Did you thin section it? I doubt it. Did you send it to be tested somewhere? I doubt that too. So basically, Kent is just tossing around, or, well, handing around, some fragile thing that maybe came out of the ground in northern Alaska that he just claims is wood. This is profoundly uncompelling. Like, I just don't know what he thinks this is going to do for anyone. Well, I guess since he's sending it to, like, people who are basically his cult members, the fact that he's the one who's lending his authority to it for some reason means something to them. Imagine thinking that Kent saying something makes it more likely to be true rather than less likely to be true.
I remember that mindset.
Yeah, me too.
But that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
He said, Mr. Holden, we were bringing up frozen wood, and of course then it thawed out in the warm temperature. He said, it's freeze-dried. Here, I got some for you.
Yeah, okay, some guy on a boat said something kind of silly to you, and then you just bought it. Why, Kent? Why would you accept that? Yeah, Fearmonger says, would not shock me if it's just a brown piece of clay. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all. That seems at least as likely. Actually, seems much more likely than that it is freeze-dried wood.
That is freeze-dried wood from 1,000 feet below the surface in Barrow, Alaska. He said, we drilled down 1,000 feet, and then we drilled through a layer of wood, frozen wood, several hundred feet thick. Well, what happened?
I mean, for one thing, we don't even know that happened. But, I don't know, Kent, what did happen?
Something was different up there at some time in the past, okay?
Literally true for everywhere. There is no place on Earth that has not been different in the past.
The question is, when was it? Now, to the evolutionist, of course, well, this was millions and millions of years ago, you know, and the continents are moving around, and the North Pole used to be at the equator and had a big force, and it slowly...
The North Pole literally can't be at the equator. That's just how geometry works. The North Pole is the axis such that if you look at it from above, the Earth looks like it's rotating counterclockwise. Whereas if you look at the South Pole from above it, the Earth looks like it's rotating clockwise. Okay? And the equator is the great circle directly between those two poles. Now, the land could shift from being on the equator to being at the North Pole. But for the pole to be on the equator, like, it's not even ontologically possible. It's illogical. It's like saying you have a circle with 5 corners. That's not how shapes...
That makes no sense.
Yeah, that's not how shapes work. We're taking a drink for it. And the thing is, look, I strongly suspect that what he was trying to say, right, was that the land that's currently at the North Pole used to be at the equator, according to scientists. But that's the thing. If you're going to try to give a talk about science, especially one that you're giving for college credit, which Kent claims to be doing, you should get it right. And you should be able to get it right. But hey, we are at the halfway mark, so we are going to take a quick break, and we are going to come back in just a little bit. And we are back. Thank you for sticking with us, those of you who did, which actually I think we gained. So thank you very much. So before we get right back into Kent, I want to say a few things. One of which is, hey, this channel is almost entirely supported directly through the support that I get from my subscribers, and I really appreciate that, whether it be in the form of joining the Patreon, joining the channel memberships, super chats, super thanks, super stickers, gifting me things from my wish list that mean that, hey, I just, it's something I don't have to spend my own money on. All of that is greatly appreciated, and frankly, the only reason the channel can keep going. So, if you are currently not supporting the channel financially, but you can afford to and are interested in doing so, we have a number of great ways for you to do that that can help me be separate from the whims of the YouTube algorithm. The first one is, of course, the Patreon. The Patreon starts at $1 a month. You can go all the way up to $50 a month. You can get a 15% discount if you go annual. There's also the channel memberships. Those start at $1.99. There are also higher tiers. There is no annual discount. Both of them give you access to my Discord server that's just for supporters. Both of them give you early access to videos. I also have channel memberships on my second channel, Top Hats Off, if you like what I do over there, which right now is mostly Star Trek Adventures, which is a tabletop role-playing game actual play, involving a number of other YouTubers. That gives you access to the server, but it does not give you access to early access to videos here. And that also gives you access to the channel emojis and membership milestone chats with the memberships. If an annual or a monthly thing just isn't your style, or you just can't afford it or whatever, that's fine. There are other ways. I have a merch store linked in the description. Like I said, there's a Amazon wishlist. Also, Bent has an Amazon wishlist and a Patreon in the description if you want to help him out directly. And of course, if a if monetary support isn't something you can do, or you're just not interested in it, that's absolutely fine. What I would ask, hit like on this video, comment on my videos, watch a few of my videos in a row. That really, really helps a lot. And also, I'm trying to get more monetization features unlocked on my Top Hats Off channel. So if you want to help me out there, just go and hit subscribe. That's it. Just go subscribe. You can turn off the notifications. I don't even care. Because the next milestone on that channel is 1,000 subscribers. Once I get that, I can unlock a large number of other things. It looks like I am well on my way to having the watch time for the 1,000 subscriber milestone. Because there's 4,000 hours of watch time. Or no, I think it's 5,000 and 1,000 subscribers, and you get other things that you can unlock. The big thing right now that looks like it's going to be the barrier is the subscribers. So, yeah, please go over there, hit subscribe, and, I mean, ideally, I would love it if you would watch some of the content on there, because I think it's pretty good. But if you don't want to, that's okay too. I don't care. That's fine. Please. We could just use some more subscribers. Also, Joshua Geese has gifted 5 Diaper Dinosaur memberships. Thank you so much. Let's take 5 drinks. 1, 2, 3, and now I have to open my next beer. So, I will pour that, and then we will check to see if YouTube has wildly changed their estimate for how many more people I need before I can get an emoji, because it seems like it's mostly random. Alright, so here's 4, and 5. Alright, let's see what YouTube has to say about this, because I don't trust them. I think I have good reason for not trusting them. Alright. Customize my channel default perks. What does it say now? This is 41. Okay, so it is being relatively consistent, but I still don't believe it. So, YouTube has lied to me so many times with that number. I don't even know what to tell you. Alright. Also, we're 27% of the way towards getting not only another fancy avatar on the channel, but also Bent wearing a tutu and getting free pizza. They're all at the 100% mark right now.
Ooh, nice.
So if we could get to 100%, which, again, would take a lot of work, but if we did it, we could get Bent a free pizza and make him wear a tutu in, like, what, 3 weeks or something?
Anything's possible.
Yeah, the 24th is the next Kent with Bent. All right, Here we go.
It drifted north and it froze. Well, maybe so, but I don't think so. Okay, I think there's a much more logical theory. That is actual freeze-dried.
Okay, this is Kent's more logical theory than just plate tectonics. It has a more logical theory than that, so let's pay close attention, everybody.
Wood from 1,000 feet under the ground in Barrow, Alaska. So this well driller said, yeah, we drilled the same thing. He said we drilled straight through the top of a tree, 300 feet. First of all, because of the angle of the Earth, it gets very little sunlight. The further north you go, the shorter, the slower trees grow. Shorter growing season. I was on the airplane yesterday coming back from wherever I was, and I sat next to a guy who works in paper mills. He does makes the machinery for paper mills. And I've toured many paper mills.
Wait, is Kent going to claim that Earth was knocked off its axis by whatever caused the flood?
I don't know, maybe.
Because that would be... I mean, that sure would be a claim. I'm not sure if I could call that more logical than just plate tectonics, but, I mean...
Toured one in Port St. Joe down here, and I've talked a lot. I sit by a lot of people on the airplane who are in paper industry, because there's a lot of that around here. And I always talk to everybody I sit by on the plane, or try to. And paper down here...
I would hate to be next to Kent on a plane. Do you know how little I would ever want to talk to strangers on a plane?
I love earbuds on a plane.
Oh my goodness. Alright, here, we gotta find out. Alright, we're gonna do another poll. Do you want to talk to strangers on a plane? Just yes or no on this. I actually want to know, like, is the rest of my audience as, like, misanthropic and curmudgeonly as I am? Or are, like, all of you, like, crazy friendly people who would just talk to randos on planes? Right now it's looking like no is winning by a huge margin.
Here, you can plant a tree in Florida, and it'll be big enough to cut to harvest in 30 years.
Okay.
I talked to a guy in Canada who worked in the paper mill. He said, yeah, it takes 60 years to get trees up to harvesting height there. They grow slower. a shorter season.
I don't understand what your point is. Like, how does this tell us when the Ice Age happened?
The further north you go, the more this becomes a problem. When you get up into central Alaska, or further north, I mean, there's incredible trees in southern Alaska. But the further north you go, the shorter the trees get. Until you get up close to the north slope of Alaska, the trees get about 1 inch tall.
And they can't be an inch tall. They'd be under the snow. Come on, man. What are you talking about?
Did he just say that trees grow to 1 inch
Yes.
in height? And that's the tallest the tree gets?
Yes. I'm just going to take a drink. I can't. Oh my goodness. Sure,
I
Kent.
think he broke my brain.
That's not even a tree at that point. Remember, tree is a niche. It's not a clade. Or a niche, which apparently is the original way to say it. I don't know.
They grow up and they grow out like a bush. They spread out.
All right. Fearmonger, Master of Science, says, "Oh my effing god! I did my thesis on papermaking, and I know exactly what's going on. They're different tree species. That's why they take different times to mature. Yeah, no surprise there." This actually. Well, first, I want to read the super chat. Gurnivaldi Gurnison for $2 says, "I don't want to talk to coworkers. Screw randos." Look, I've had some coworkers that I was quite fond of, and would definitely hang out with outside of work and whatnot. But I've also had plenty of coworkers where I'm just like, no, man, we just work together. We're not friends. I'm cordial with you, but like, that's it. We're coworkers. But yeah, randos, not my thing. So yeah, but so this reminds me of a conversation I had with Dan Stern Cardinal, and he was going on and on about how bad it is that how badly wrong creationists get genetics, including the ones who are so-called professional geneticists like Nathaniel Jeanson, or to a lesser extent Georgia Purdom, or is it Purdom? I keep hearing it different ways. Whatever, I'll just say Purdom. Georgia, if I'm wrong about how to say your name, please correct me. He's going to watch this, right? But anyway, and he kept going on about this, and he was like, "You guys just don't get it. This has to be the thing they get the most wrong." And I'm like, no, Dan. All that's happening is it's the thing that you know the most about. So you're the most aware of how wrong it is. But trust me, ask the geology guys that we know how badly wrong they get geology. It's just as bad. Think about how badly wrong I notice that they get paleontology. It's just as bad. They're this bad at everything. It's just that you have a narrow slice of knowledge where you can most easily notice it. And that's just what happened here, right? So, Fearmonger knows about papermaking and, knows about, like, growing trees for commercial reasons and whatnot. That's what Fearmonger knows a lot about. And it's like, holy crap, Kent is getting this entirely wrong. Yeah, that's how it is for everyone who has any area of expertise that Kent ever touches on. That's how everyone feels about it. But you don't always notice because you only have that relatively narrow set of things that you know about. And yeah, so Fearmonger, he is just as wrong about everything else as he is about trees and papermaking and, all that stuff. Vinny Marchenko says, "You were lucky you don't realize how badly young Earth creationists twist and bend linguistics." So the thing about linguistics and young Earth creationism is that all I ever really hear them say is like, "Oh, the languages came from Babel," and like, okay, and like, do you have predictions from this? Like, was it language families? Do you think every modern language popped out at Babel? And it's all just a big fog bank. They just don't say anything. They're like, "Dude, they came from Babel." Like, do you have anything else? Do you have a way to trace these languages? No? Okay, cool. Thanks.
Because the sun never gets up very high. The sun is always, just right at the equator, or right at the horizon, And the sun comes up over here.
I'm glad that he figured out the difference between the equator and the horizon. Thanks, Kent. To be fair, the horizon, when you're at the North Pole, will also be the celestial equator, roughly. So, there are ways in which they're connected. Vadim Marchenko says, do we have to buy you Bodhi Hodge's book on AIG linguistics? Actually, I am interested in reading it, honestly. I think it might be worth talking about. But if it's anything like what I've heard him say in his talks, it's just going to be a bunch of nothing. It's just going to be him saying, well, I think it came from the Tower of Babel. And then just, like, leaving it at that. But if you've read it and it's more than that, and there's actual, like, claims that I can dig into, like actual linguistic claims about things like historical linguistics or universal grammar or anything like that, let me know. Because if there is actually more to it, I would be very interested in covering it then.
It goes down over here. When Mom and I were up there, it was so neat watching the moon, because, the moon would go up and go down. It really never did get over your head, And it's really...
Yes, Kent, that's how extreme latitudes work. This is well known. I'm glad you're not a flat earther, I guess. I don't know.
Strange. But anyway, this trees get about yay tall. And they spread out more like a bush because they can absorb more sunlight. Well, how do you get a 300-foot tall tree at the North Pole? Very few people would argue with the fact that something was different at some time.
I love this. It's like, how would you get this 300-foot tree? Kent, I'm not confident that you found that or anyone found that in the first place. Because again, all of this is based on some guy on a boat trip told me, and then somehow he handed me a plastic baggie of what he said was freeze-dried wood from an oil well shaft in Alaska. That is literally all this is based on. Just let that sink in, the level of unreliability that is going on here. Hey, Kent, some guy told me that down at Dinosaur Adventureland, you like to get a little too frisky with the chickens. Yep. Now what do we do? Should we go off that? Should we accept that as just the gospel truth because I said some guy said a thing? No, obviously not. How do I know? Who was it? Was it even a real guy? Maybe I made that guy up. How would you know?
There'd be no way of knowing.
Yeah. Yeah, as Julian, some guy on a boat at Alred says. It's a great name. Are you saying you doubt Kent's word? Yes, I absolutely doubt Kent's word. Kent, who is notoriously wrong about almost everything he talks about. Although today, like I said, he's been getting a weird amount right.
On the Earth's surface, because there are enormous trees near the North Pole.
Or so you claim.
At the South Pole, you find the same thing. Admiral Byrd, one of the first guys, maybe the first guy, I don't remember now, to get to the South Pole back in 1927 or something like that.
Rail got to bill for $5 says, Creationist crackpot musings on linguistics probably make the Altaic hypothesis look like Grimm's Law. Ooh. Alexander Vovin is rolling in his grave. Okay. Maybe I just haven't looked into their linguistics claims sufficiently. I'll tell you what, here's what we'll do. I'm going to set a goal. If we can get 10 yellow or higher super chats in the next 30 minutes, I'll buy Bodhi Hodge's book and respond to it. That is the goal. It's not going to be easy, right? But if we can get there, I will buy Bodhi Hodge's book and I will do a response video to it. Or like a live thing. It'll probably end up being like Dapper Reacts, right? We'll go through the book like we did with the Giants book that Bishanti has. We'll go through that like that.
He reported seeing frozen palm leaves, palm fronds, under the ice near the South Pole.
Yeah. So we have good reason to think that the South Pole, Antarctica was not always at the South Pole. And you can actually tell with things like this, right? Like you can look at things like seasonal variation in deposits, like vars, and things like that. Look at things like how long is growing versus not growing seasons, like what kinds of pollen do you get in the ground and whatnot. So, yeah. So Fearmonger says, do Max 9 donations don't give AIG any money? I am not sure what Max 9 is, but I will... My first attempt to get this book will be to find it in places that do not directly give AIG money. I will try to get it used or something like that. Obviously, I won't pirate it because that would be illegal. Just like going to sci-hub.se would be illegal, so don't go there to get your scientific papers for free.
I'm sure Ken Hovind's never been there.
I'm sure he hasn't, because why would Kent Hovind ever read a peer-reviewed paper?
Exactly.
Well, there's a few problems with this, okay? There are no trees growing in Antarctica. Nothing.
Well, so there aren't trees, but there are now plants as a result of climate change, which is fun. The northernmost parts of Antarctica now have greenery, which, yeah, that's not what was happening just a few decades ago. So that's great.
Especially not palm trees. Okay? We are in Pensacola, 30 degrees north of the equator. We have a hard time keeping palm trees alive up here. Really, further south, they do better. 30 degrees.
Mark Schipple for $10 says, is Kent describing Pangea? So it's kind of hard to say, right? Because Kent is just kind of like a confusing fog bank when it comes to like his actual ideas about the past. So it's hard to say. Now, Antarctica stayed near the equator long after Pangea broke up. So, like, the answer is basically maybe, and it's hard to tell. It's not even clear to what degree Kent thinks Pangea is even real. And also, that was Mark Schipple's third super chat on the channel, so thank you very much. I do appreciate that. Congratulations. And then, why can I not update this counter? 62.98. There we go. And then Vince O'Connor for $9.99 says, Kino Ire, the book, please. I am not sure what that means. So, but then I did complete the poll. The poll ended. And do you want to talk to strangers on a plane? No, 81%. Yes, 18%. With 69 votes. Nice. And once again, Google cannot count to 100 because 81 plus 18 is in fact 99, not 100. So, thanks, Google.
Degrees. You go up another 50, 100 miles, really hard. It freezes, kills them. That's 30 degrees from the equator. We're talking South Pole.
Okay. So, the South Pole wasn't always where Antarctica is. Like, we know that for more reasons than just the paleoflora. This isn't even debated.
Palm leaves.
Bugged out. I think there's more to that name. No, just bugged out for $10 says, this doesn't bode well with their third super chat on the stream, or sorry, on the channel. Thank you very much. And no, it does not. But it might be fun to actually get the book and go through some bad creationist linguistics, because honestly, I've largely been ignoring that part of young Earth creationism because it's not normally something I think of. But like, hey, if it's as bad as y'all are saying, then maybe it's worth taking a look at.
Okay, well, you look at the evidence. It's a fact. These things are found. North Pole and South Pole have evidence of tropical vegetation.
Dutch Tunicate Demonic Selection for $5 says, Antarctica has had some greenery before climate change. It's just spreading farther into the continent than it used to. I don't know why YouTube is suddenly cutting off some of my super chats in my my viewer activity, but it's really annoying, and I wish they wouldn't. And I don't know how to fix that. So, all right, and there's a Godzilla, so we'll take a drink. And I guess I was under the mistaken impression that it was knew that there was plants at all. But yeah, thank you very much for that correction. I do appreciate it. Josh McGee's for $10 says, I'm curious about Bodhi's linguistics book, though I suspect I'll regret that curiosity later. And then Pixie Purple for $10 says, I really want to see you respond to this book. People shell out the cash. So I will update that. So thank you very much. Let's see. Oh, I screwed that up just a little bit. Let's see. Goop23 for $10 says, I can't wait for us to take psychic damage from that book. You guys are going to get so many psychic nosebleeds. It'll be unbelievable. And hey, we're now at 50%, well, 45% of the way to getting Bent to wear a tutu, as well as getting him free pizza.
Yum.
I wonder if I could find a place that sells turkey pizza for Thanksgiving, even though Thanksgiving is ours ended.
They have a year to prepare.
What happened? How did it get there? Now, there's numerous theories about that. The continents are drifting. Okay, it used to be tropical, and Antarctica used to be up here, and it drifted south. Maybe so. Okay, that is one theory, and that's the standard textbook theory.
I've heard that the ice built up on the poles and then it just got so.
Lady Novelist, Kent's tender touch, a chicken's tail. Oh no! For $9.99 says, Kent dresses like a chicken in the bedroom. Source, trust me, bro. Godzilla will take a drink for the Godzilla. Oh man, what have I done with telling that joke? What horrors have I wrought upon this poor benighted world? Alright, here we go.
It tipped it over. Tipped the whole Earth's crust over.
Slid the crust of the earth. That's what.
Joshua Geese for $10 says, here's one for Jillian as a birthday gift. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And I'm sure it does, Jillian, especially if we actually meet this goal and I have to go get a creationist linguistics book, which, oh boy, does that sound like a nightmare.
And see, all of these things are theories that I think certainly worthy of investigation. But we'll give you the Hovind theory, what I think happened. What froze the mammoths?
Okay, Kent, here we go.
Huge, hairy, hippie elephants. Frozen.
Hairy, hippie elephants? Is it just because hippies tend not to shave? Is that the entire joke?
I don't know what he means by hippie.
I think it's just that the hippies tend not to shave. Which is also not entirely accurate. I've definitely known self-described hippies who did shave, but, like, whatever. I guess I'll take a drink for it, because it's a joke that certainly did land. Then Josh Wiggy says, for $10, add one for Triceratops. Thank you very much on behalf of myself, and presumably Triceratops also, who actually did just say thanks, Joshua, with a bunch of what look like goose emojis. Rail Gatibella for $2 says, Gonzo is 1,000 times the chicken liver Kent is. Oh, man. I did not know this was just going to become a constant topic of discussion. What have I done? Oh, and hey, look, we just met the goal of Vince O'Connor for $9.99 saying my keyboard is being flasky. So let's try again. Acquire the book, please. Well, I will now have to. I will look into ways to get that book that do not require me to send money to AIG. If it is absolutely necessary, I will give them a few bucks. But yeah, I will be trying my darndest to find a way to not have to give them any money. I do have a few people that I think might be able to get that book for me. Drilling for Wood by Ken Shower Thoughts for $10 says, I want to be number 10. Also, AIG is a sack of chicken eggs. Unfortunately, you were number 11. But Rail Gatubello for $2 says, the only hairy hippie elephant is Kent's mom. Oh. I have no idea. Kent's mom might have been an absolutely lovely woman. I have no clue. But we'll take a drink for AIG as a sack of chicken eggs, even though it doesn't technically qualify. I'm thirsty. Alright, let's update the numbers here. 59% of the way. Bent, you might actually be in danger of needing to wear a tutu, but also in danger of getting free pizza.
Neither feels dangerous to me.
Well then, you would make a bad Darkwing Duck.
I'm a very brave man.
Okay. No, bravery isn't about not noticing danger. It's about continuing on despite the danger. Not noticing the danger is just silly or stupid.
I do both.
Okay.
Yeah, I do both.
Okay.
Some of them standing up. And actually, very few have been found frozen in the standing position. I think about 50 or so.
Based on what, Kent? What? He's just making up numbers today. He's like, Antarctica would probably rebound about 2,000 feet. 50-ish trees found standing up in Antarctica. Like, what are you basing any of this on? The thing is, like, 50 doesn't actually seem like that crazy of a number, but, like, where'd you get it, Kent?
So, at least that have been researched. Eskimos find them all the time, and they don't care.
Okay, look. When Kent said this, the baggage with the word Eskimo was not as widely acknowledged as it is now, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Generally, don't use that word. Put that out there.
Do they eat the meat?
I don't know if Eskimos eat the meat or not. Hans Koopman in Canada. I stayed at his house when I preached up there in Waterloo. His dad worked up on the north slope of Alaska, and his dad said he ate mammoth meat. They found a frozen mammoth, took a chainsaw, and cut slabs of meat off with a chainsaw. It's
Modern people have eaten mammoth meat. It's very uncommon, though, and I doubt that this ever happened.
frozen solid, thawed it out, cooked it, and ate it. According to Hans, his dad said, well, it tasted like it had been in the freezer too long.
Uh-huh.
Well, maybe because it has. It's
Take
been
a drink
there while.
for a joke that didn't land.
But there have been reports of a lot of people will feed that mammoth meat to their dogs, no problem. Dogs have a much stronger digestive system. But there have been
Is it stronger, or do they just like more things? Because I've seen dogs eat things that probably wouldn't make me sick, but that certainly I don't want to eat.
I think it's both.
Okay.
I think they do have pretty good, like I read that you can feed dogs raw chicken. I don't know if that's true or not.
Okay. Because like I
Doesn't
feel like
sound
I would
out,
be.
but
I feel
they
like
can handle it.
nothing bad would happen to me if I ate some dog kibble, but I also feel like I absolutely would not enjoy it.
No, absolutely not.
But like,
That
do you think
sounds
anything?
disgusting.
Do you think anything bad would happen to me? Like, I wouldn't need to go to the hospital for like poison or something.
You might vomit.
You think I would?
Not you, I guess, but like one in general might if they really find it disgusting.
Maybe. I mean, I doubt I would find it so disgusting that I would vomit. But then again, I vomit very infrequently, so.
people who have eaten it. At least I stayed with a guy who said his dad did, and I have no reason to doubt him. Okay, the guy's a good Christian.
If there is one person in this world who should be a wonderful demonstration of the fact that someone being a Christian does not make them trustworthy, it's Kent Hovind. Look, contrary to what Kent Hovind might think, and contrary to what one of your family members might have said in the past, Ken, or Bent, sorry, it turns out Christians can and do lie. Being a Christian in no way prevents you from that. And look, I don't think that's an argument against Christianity in the first place, right? Christianity is supposed to be like, like the church is sometimes called the hospital for the soul. It's supposed to be the place where you go and work on yourself, which means you got problems in the first place. Maybe one of those is lying. But yeah, if there's one thing young Earth creationism has taught me, it is that there is no correlation between being a Christian and being an honest individual. None whatsoever. Now, I don't think there's a negative correlation, because I know plenty of Christians who, as far as I can tell, are very honest, good, upstanding folk. And I have no reason to think that them being a Christian makes them less honest than I think they are. But, yeah. Being a Christian does not make you not a liar.
This is the Barasovka mammoth, one of the first ones actually researched. Now, for centuries, it was known about these mammoths up there. And sometimes you get a very warm summer, and they melt. The ice melts.
You get increasingly warm summers now.
Melts a little further than normal, and so these mammoths, are exposed. When all kinds of theories existed down through history about what these mammoths were. Some people used to teach that they were giant animals that lived underground, like moles, and they dig tunnels, and then they come up, and if they see the sunlight, they die. Well, because the only ones you see on the surface are dead. Well, I suppose that's possible, but I don't think so. Okay, I don't think the mammoths are digging holes in the ground.
Yeah, Kent, I don't either, but I'm not going to laugh at people for trying to come up with some kind of plausible explanation for a phenomenon that is otherwise hard for them to explain, right? Like, Kent is laughing at these people who have this silly idea from, the stupid ages back before science. But think about who's doing that laughing at these people. It's Kent. All of his ideas are from the stupid ages before science. Kent, you don't have a leg to stand on. Kent, you think that there used to be a water canopy in a physically impossible configuration above the Earth? You were wrong about the age of the Earth by 7 orders of magnitude. You think every single nucleotide in a DNA strand is an entire gene, and you think that the way that sexual reproduction works is that chromosomes split in half down the center of the DNA strand, and then one half from mom and the other half from dad join together, even though they're not going to be direct conjugate pairs, and that's how you mix up genes, which you don't know the difference between a gene and an allele, between parents, is that you get one half... Oh, drink from Mothra. Is that you get one nucleotide that says brown eyes, and then another nucleotide that says blue eyes, and because you don't know which of those things are dominant, you routinely guess wrong and say that if you have one brown hair gene and one blonde hair gene, you'll have blonde hair, even though blonde hair is recessive. And those aren't genes, they're alleles. It is one of the biggest ironies that I have encountered on this, that Kent is laughing at people for their backwards pre-scientific ideas. That's all Kent has.
Kind of tough to dig a hole. Some people teach that the mammoths are designed for cold weather.
I mean, what with the extensive fat deposits and thick, heavy hair, the padded soles, the feet, the tiny ears compared to other proboscideans, yeah, there's pretty good reason to think they're adapted for the cold.
Well, there are many problems. If you get Walt Brown's book in the beginning, he lists a whole list of problems why the mammoth cannot be a cold weather animal.
Okay.
Just because it had 30-inch long hair doesn't mean it's designed for cold weather.
On its own, no, but when we combine that with all the other things, yeah, we're pretty sure. Also, we can take a look at what species were around with mammoths, because we have them preserved in the same layers, as well as we actually even have, in some cases, exceptionally well-preserved mammoths that have their food still in their gut, identifiably, like by species. And those species tend to be cold weather species, because most of those species are still alive. So, like, we have every reason to think that mammoths were cold adapted. Now, they weren't living in places that were just, year-round snow-covered, because what would they eat? But, yeah, they were definitely living in places that are we now call the Mammoth Steppe. This was almost entirely gone now. There's only a few places in the world that still are roughly identical to the Mammoth Steppe. But it was a ecosystem that used to cover basically most of the northern hemisphere. And it was this very lightly forested, or if you want to even call it forested, very few trees, lots of low-growing shrubs. It was sort of semi-arid, and there was seasonal snow. We know all of this. We also know what other kinds of megafauna were there, like the woolly rhino. We know that there were horses there. Various lion species. Like, we have a really good idea of what the Mammoth Steppe was like, and it was cold.
Many animals in the jungle have long hair.
Yeah, very few of them are gigantic elephants, Kent. That's the thing, right? Like, elephants aren't very hairy because they're so big that they really have mostly they have a problem shedding heat, not retaining heat. That's why African elephants have gigantic ears. They shed heat through their ears. What would an African elephant do if you put a thick coat of long hair on it? It would die of heat exhaustion. Because if you're really big, you're good at preserving heat. So if you're really, really big and you still need thick, thick fur, it's hard to come up with a reason other than that it's hot. It's also hard to come up with a way that you could survive in a other than that it's cold. And it's hard to see how you could even survive without suffering from heat stroke in a warm environment. So this is a thing that creationists, pseudoscientists generally do all the time, right? They'll hyper-focus in on one thing at a time and say, this one thing fails to explain the consensus position in science, right? So they'll say, long thick fur doesn't make you an Arctic animal. Okay, that's true. And then they'll say things like, mutations on their own cannot explain the modern diversity of life. Okay, that's also true. But in both cases, you're ignoring the wider body of evidence which has to be looked at in total to come up with something. Right? It's not just that the hair indicates that they're cold weather animals. It's a whole confluence of all sorts of different lines of evidence, including ecological, dietary, other parts of their anatomy. All of this comes together. Not to mention the fact that a small population of mammoths lived on Wrangel Island into early historic times, and we know that Wrangel Island was cold that whole time.
If the mammoths lived up where it's cold, an elephant today will eat 500 pounds a day.
Okay.
Where's he going to get 500 pounds of vegetation up there?
From the steppe. The Mammoth Steppe, which was full of grass and flowers and shrubs. That's where, Kent. We know that's what they were eating because we have their gut contents. They weren't living in, like, polar deserts.
If he's got to scrape the snow out of the way to get to it, his tusks ought to show wear marks from scraping the snow.
They do show wear marks, Kent. What are you talking about? All elephants use their tusks for food gathering, at least in part. They all show... I'm taking a drink. Does he think elephants have tusks for show? Does he think they're for the poachers? What does Kent think elephants do with their tusks? Let me know if you have ideas. Yeah, let me know if you have ideas in the chat as to what Kent thinks elephants do with their tusks. Because I'm having trouble even imagining it.
They don't.
Yes, they do, Kent. You're just wrong.
There are no wear marks on the tusks that I'm aware of. None.
I've looked at mammoth tusks in person. They have very obvious wear marks. I don't even know what Kent is talking about. I have no idea how to process this. Mammoth tusks don't have wear marks. They have extremely obvious wear marks. You can go to a museum, look at real mammoth tusks, and they're right there. They have extremely prominent wear marks. Oh my goodness. Vadim Radchenko says they used to pick their noses, obviously. Jillian, some guy on a boat at Hallren, says they prove the glory of God, obviously. Well, there you go. Crypto457 says he thinks only male elephants have tusks while females lack them because female. Oh, so does he think they're for like interest-specific like dominance fighting? Because like it's not like elephants don't use them for that, but even that would cause wear marks. So like, yeah, Triceratops is not a sauropodian dinosaur. Says can't go to an actual museum challenge. I'm taking another drink for mammoth tusks don't show any wear marks. What an incredibly stupid thing to say.
Significant anyway. So they weren't scraping snow out of the way to get to the stuff underneath. Like a deer, you know, will use his antlers and brush away.
Also, I gotta point out, do you know how soft snow is compared to a tooth enamel?
It's super soft.
The wear marks on mammoth tusks are primarily from them digging into the ground, not from them sweeping snow away. So I do want to also point that out. Like, snow is such a soft material, it's not going to scrape enamel. Lady Novelist, Kent's teacher touched chicken... Sorry. Lady Novelist, Kent's tender touch a chicken's tail, member for 4 months at the amniote level, says, you don't want to know what Kent thinks... Sorry. You don't want to know what Kent does with the mammoth tusk stapper. You don't want to know. You know what? You're probably right. Crypto457 says, yeah, he probably thinks elephants are led by an alpha male bull because it has tusks. I started out this video impressed by how much Kent was getting right. And I'm both glad and frustrated that at this point, we are back to Kent saying the absolute dumbest stuff imaginable. And Lieutenant Fitz of Rage has gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. You can tell Lieutenant Fitz of Rage is Lieutenant because over on Top Hats Off, they have joined the channel at the Lieutenant level, which I do greatly appreciate. So thank you very much. And here's 5 drinks. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. First, Alex Markle says, as a resident of the frozen tundra of Minnesota, I can't confirm that snow is indeed soft. Vadim Ranchenko says, your southernness is showing only freshly swallowed snow is soft, but damn stuff can partly melt and refreeze into a sort of thick layer of ice. When I say soft, though, I do not mean that it is fluffy like a pillow. I mean soft in like the geology sense of what it can scratch. Ice will not scratch enamel, because ice... Actually, let's find out what is the most hardness for ice. If my computer is going to work, which it doesn't seem to want to do. That's fun. Right there. Okay. So, let's see. Most hardness of 2 or less. Let's check on enamel. Enamel is the hardest substance in the human body. It's harder than steel. Let's see. Tooth enamel is usually around 5. So yes, in fact, enamel is much, much harder than ice. So no matter how hard the snow gets, it will never scratch enamel. So there we go. Ivory is 2 to 4. Okay. So yeah, even if we go with the lower number of 2 to 4, which I found 5 for enamel, but I guess maybe ivory overall has 2 to 4. So even there, you're not expecting to see scratch marks from snow or ice on mammoth tusks. Because remember, tusks are just teeth, right? They're technically incisors. So, yeah.
Everything and get to the grass underneath. There just simply isn't enough vegetation up there now to support these mammoths.
Mammoths migrated, Ken. Like virtually every large animal that lives in the Arctic, they migrated seasonally. That's it. That's the extent of this conundrum of what do they eat in the winter? They went south. Joshua Geese has just gifted 10 more Dapper Dinosaur memberships. Thank you so much. I do greatly appreciate that. It really does help. So let's take 10 drinks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, goodness, and 10. Hey, Ben, we're at 77%.
We're getting close.
You might have to wear a tutu.
I could do that.
Okay, I believe in you. I've seen you do it.
Yeah, I can handle that. That's not too big a deal.
One year, my understanding is they used to go up and get just the tusks to sell for ivory. Ivory used to be what they used to make keys on piano. That's why they say he's going to tickle the ivory. You know,
That's right about that.
ivory and
Take a
most
drink,
plastic,
I guess.
Still sounds better to tickle the ivory than tickle the plastic. And ivory was made for all sorts of jewelry and everything like that. They would go up and get these tusks because they're this big around and 12 feet long. Solid ivory, worth a fortune.
Ivory isn't solid in the first place, but whatever.
You could spend all year hunting around and find 2 of them and pay for your year's salary, you know.
I have no idea if that's true. I don't know what the price of mammoth ivory is. I do know that people in Hong Kong tried to tell me that things were actually made of mammoth ivory when they were very much made of bone. That was a thing that happened. Don't trust the street merchants in Hong Kong to accurately tell you what things are made of. Just don't.
So they find these mammoth tusks. In 1 year, my understanding is they took out 20,000 pairs of tusks.
Once again, a number that I'm pretty sure Kent just made up, but like whatever, who cares?
Most people estimate that probably around the polar region, 5 million mammoths perished.
Ever? That seems actually kind of low. Like, do you mean are preserved? Because that might be plausible.
Now, some good friends of mine, like at ICR and groups like that, they think the...
Okay, hold on. Kent, ICR aren't your good friends. They, to this day, have a paper, or not a paper, but an article on their website about arguments we think creationists shouldn't use, which is almost tailored to basically just be why Kent Hovind is wrong, but we don't want to say his name. Kent is a pariah among young Earth creationists. He does not have friends at ICR, at least none that are willing to come out publicly and say that they're his friends. I think even Ray Comfort has abandoned him. Yeah. When you're too bad for even Ray Comfort, yeah, you done fucked up. There's our one for the stream.
The mammoths froze after the flood. Well, I have a very serious objection to that.
How are you going to get 5 million?
Yeah, there's only 2 mammoths on the ark. It takes a while to get more mammoths, you know.
Okay, so Kent is saying that for proboscideans, the kind level is roughly at the species level, maybe the genus level, right? Because remember, mammoths are more closely related to Asian elephants than they are to African elephants, which means that mammoths are elephants. So Kent is claiming that on the ark, proboscideans were taken on at least the genus level. There's a problem with that. There are dozens of genera of proboscideans. You couldn't even fit all of the feed on the ark for dozens of proboscidean pairs. So no version of this works. But Kent is right. There isn't enough time after the flood to get this many mammoths. But we've got them anyway. And they're near the top of the geological column, which means they're above most of what Kent thinks is the flood deposits. So again, we have this problem where, Kent, if you think these were drowned during the flood, why are they so close to the top of the geological column? And if you don't like the phrase geological column, Kent, then the top of the geology of the Earth. That's a problem for you, Kent. It's just as big a problem for you as it is for ICR. Joshua Geese for $5 says, that freeze frame looked like the more you know spot. Yeah, it did kind of. Thank you very much, and I will update the counter. 79%, we could get there. We got less than 10 minutes, though. Can we make up 21% in less than 10 minutes?
Anything's possible.
Anything's possible, but it would take a lot of super chats. All right, so we're going to get a little bit more Kent in, and then we're going to start wrapping things up.
And it would take a long time to get 5 million of them. Okay, you figure they're pregnant for 2 years. At least if they're like an elephant. Elephant's pregnant for 2 years.
Yeah, Kent's right about that. Take a drink.
Yeah, this is a long, slow process, getting 5 million of them. And then the other problems are they suffocated.
No, they mostly didn't.
The ones that are able to be investigated, they didn't drown, they suffocated. Get the air on here, would you?
Drowning is suffocation, though. That's the thing. It's just suffocating underwater. What? I mean, he's wrong that they mostly suffocated, but, like, also, that's what drowning is, Kent. I'm taking a... I don't even know. I don't even know how to respond to that. They didn't suffocate, they drowned. Okay. He wasn't poisoned. He just had a whole bunch of toxins. Cool. Sure, Kent. Whatever.
Yeah, Becky, flip that air conditioner over. These red dots on the map indicate where frozen mammoths have been found.
That was the one we were just looking at. Okay, whatever.
The yellow dots indicate where frozen rhinoceros have been found.
Ooh.
Frozen woolly rhinoceros.
Yes, Kent, because they're cold weather animals. Which, I just... why would a bunch of animals in the Arctic all have so much fur when their hot weather relatives don't? Probably has nothing to do with the climate, right?
Now, if you look right at the number 140 degree mark there, it goes right through the islands called the New Siberian Islands.
Rana, Unwelcome Nuance Cave for $5 says, incoming reduced oxygen and size argument. Ooh, that might be true. Yeah, he might be talking about how, like, after the flood there was so much less oxygen, so things couldn't grow so big.
On the New Siberian Islands, there have been reports that there are so many animals frozen up there. You can hardly touch the ground when you walk. You're always walking on frozen animals or frozen bones.
Okay.
Frozen bobcat.
Lieutenant Fits of Rage has just gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. Thank you so much. That brings us up to 86. Let's take some drinks. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right. Here we go. Wait, we're going to double check on YouTube, see if they're lying to me again. See what it says. All right, YouTube, what are you pretending that I need for more emojis? They now say 21 more, but I'm pretty sure that's still a lie, so I don't believe them.
Frozen lynx, camel.
I very much doubt that there are frozen camels there, but whatever.
I can't document now where I read it, but I know I read it.
Once again, Kent's sources, trust me, bro. Amazing. Kent, you had time to prepare for this. These are prepared marks. You could have collected your sources, and when you couldn't find a source, you could have omitted the claim. This is amazing.
This is supposed to be a college class, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
That's Kent's claim, at least.
to go back and find out where now, because somebody will question me on it.
Yeah, Kent, I will. I absolutely will. Because you very frequently have as your source, trust me, but I don't trust you. Because I happen to know for a fact that everything, well, not everything, but that when you say something, it's far more likely to be wrong than it is to be correct. So no, I don't trust you, Kent.
But they found a frozen camel, or the skeleton of a camel, I think.
Vulpix says camels started as cold weather critters. I'm not saying that I don't think there were camels because of the climate. I'm saying that because of it being pretty far from where camels evolved. And then when they evolved and started spreading into Eurasia, they had a tendency to go south and not north. But I could be wrong about that. So, I'm not a camel expert. I'm not a camelologist.
It was dried out and dissolved enough, decayed enough.
Bugged Out, who's been a member for 8 months, I know how to read, and is at the amniote level, says, I keep thinking I should change my name to an in-joke, but I can't come up with anything clever. Anyway, AIG is a bag of tusks. I'll take a drink for that. Thank you very much. Okay.
15 feet tall. First place, camels don't get 15 feet tall.
Okay, but Ken, you're just making things up because of something you read. So, who cares? Literally, your source for this is just something I read one day, trust me. We're going to pick up with more of Kent's trust me, bro claims about camels and mammoths and islands next time. Because it's time to start wrapping things up. Bent, you got anything coming up that you want to tell people about?
I do not.
Okay. So, what is coming up on the channel and for me generally? So, there is nothing in particular tomorrow from the channel. So, I don't know, sorry. But on Thursday, I'm going to be premiering Bat Evolution, Endosymbiosis, and Human Species. Answers News is awful. So, and then Josh McGee's just gifted 10 more Dapper Dinosaur memberships. Thank you so much. That puts us at 99%. Oh man, we're extremely close. So close. Thank you so much. Here's 10 drinks. Actually, I'm out of my drink.
I'm out of my drinks too.
All right, I'll tell you what. I will go run and grab a beer real quick. Give me a second, Bent. Who's your favorite Star Trek: The Next Generation guest character?
Guest character? Let me sit here and think about it for 30 seconds. Guest character. Does Guinan count as a guest character?
Sure.
She's there for a while, but not for... I heard a sure in the background, so yeah, we'll go with Guinan. The woman who should have been the ship's consular all along. Sorry, Deanna Troy.
All right. I am back. And now I have this new beer. And then Joshua Geese just gifted 5 more Dapper Dinosaur memberships. I think we all know what that means.
Nice.
It means, first of all, Bent gets free pizza, except I cut it off because I don't know how to arrange this, which means we're getting 16 drinks in. Oh boy. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, it's really, really cold. 5, 6, 7. Oh my goodness, I'm getting brain freeze. 8, 9, 10. And then Grungavaldi Gernison says, for $2, Bent, you are wrong. The answer is Scotty for best.
That's a good point, actually.
Where did I just get to?
About the, I think you said 10.
Okay. And then for $2.22, Mine Finished Journey says, Hail Nero, Helldaps, and Bent. AIG is an empty bag of, looks like worms. So I guess now I have to get to 17? My goodness. You guys are trying to kill me right at the end here. Or you're just trying to extend the thing. Technically, as long as you keep super chatting, I can't close the stream. So if you want All right, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And there we go. So that was Thursday. We're doing the the Answers News is awful, that where I cover Answers News because they're awful. I only cover the ones that are actually about science, though. About half their content now is just them complaining that, like, oh my goodness, a trans woman used a bathroom. Can you believe it? Or, can you believe this guy was arrested for committing crimes outside of an abortion clinic? And yes, I absolutely can believe that. In fact, turns out that abortion clinics aren't the purge, where there is no crime for some reason. That's not how abortion clinics work, guys. So that's that. On Friday. So on Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific, we will be doing over on Top Hats Off No Good Deed, which is an episode of Star Trek Lexington, a Star Trek Adventures tabletop RPG actual play featuring myself, Chesh, FTFE, Jordan from Reason to Doubt, Necro from the chat, Zerolon from the chat, and who am I forgetting? I'm definitely forgetting someone. Tiri Rana. Sorry, Tiri. I'm forgetting Tiri Rana. He's the GM for my Wednesday game. I'm so screwed on Wednesday. All right, so that's Friday. Then Saturday, we will be back, hopefully, with Kip Davis for a final look at Hugh Ross taking on Neil deGrasse Tyson about the Bible, and Neil deGrasse Tyson winning despite not even being able to respond, because almost everything Hugh Ross says is just further validation of Neil deGrasse Tyson's take about the Bible. So that is a weird series. But hopefully Kip Davis will be there. He is invited. He was supposed to be there last week, but unfortunately couldn't make it because of family obligations. So we wish him well on that. And yeah, hopefully he'll be here for Saturday. Then on Tuesday, I'm sorry. The plan is actually Jackson with Jackson. Now, normally it would be the next Kent with Bent, but instead we're doing Kent with Bent on the 24th because that is Christmas Eve, and Jackson wants to, do stuff like spend time with family and his new wife, whereas Bent has no friends or family and is a lonely, lonely man who only gets social interaction on Kent with Bent.
Alone versus lonely.
Well, I'm just teasing. Bent, in fact, does have friends and even family. So they just don't want to talk to him on Christmas.
Yeah.
Although, actually, technically, I do believe that the majority of the show will be on Christmas because, as we all know, the Christian day for religious observances traditionally starts at sunset for Christian holidays and for just Christianity generally. So, technically, it will be Christmas for most of the time that we're on air. So, an early Merry Christmas to all of you. And to all of you, a good night, because we're out of here. And if you're interested and have access to the Discord server, we're going to go watch 5 episodes of Power Ranger Samurai on 1.25 speed to get through it faster. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above.
Ben Tovand, Ferravara, Tapioca Weasel, Whispers, Eleron Teller, Ian Chen, Kelvin Brostick Van Manen, Landon Knoll, Mabdy Babdy, Wallace, Max Cherry, North Texas Fossils, John Ackerman, and Strawberry Vein.
It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 10% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos, often 3 to 5 months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.